Hello, Shoyan here. Today I'm installing the flooring, but first I'm adding a column at the center of the 3.6 meter kamoi, then putting in two shiki at the doorway. This house has a traditional layout, 4 rooms arranged in a grid separated by sliding doors. There isn't a single wall in the middle, everything is divided solely by sliding doors. Now we're turning half of that 3.6 meter opening where 4 sliding doors fit into a wall. Otherwise, there won't be anywhere to put a TV, run outlets, or install switches. If there are only doors, the space turns into one big open room when they're open. But these days, people don't really use it that way. That's why I'm adding a column in the middle to make the space more practical. I'm prepping 2 columns and 2 shiki. They're all made from hinoki cypress. The columns are 12 centimeters square and the shiki are 6 centimeters by 12 centimeters. I plane them all in the workshop, run them through the super surfacer and then bring them to the site. I installed a 12 centimeter square hinoki column to support the middle of the 3.6 meter kamoi. At first, I thought about keeping the existing shiki, but since I'm narrowing the doorway from 3.6 meters to half of that, I decided to replace it with a new one. I've already leveled the floor, but as I mentioned in the last video, this side had settled by about 20 millimeters. The structural pillar and stone pier had sunk, a common issue with isolated foundations. And it wasn't just the pillar, the beam above had dropped too. This part settled by 2 centimeters and this part by 1 centimeter since it's halfway across. With that much movement, even the center has dropped a bit. Trying to jack up the whole thing would put too much strain on the structure, so I'll leave the higher part alone and just lift the kamoi slightly when installing the new column. You can see the top frame of the fusuma was trimmed. The kamoi settled lower over the years. Normally, the frame should show.
Is it that black part?
They trimmed the frame many times. And now, there's almost nothing left. They really tried their best to keep the fusuma sliding.
Does this happen a lot?
Yeah, warped wood actually would have worked better. Since they used straight pieces, even though the wood's thick, it still ended up sagging. Next, I'll install the column. But first, I remove the sliding doors and the 3.6 meter shiki, then use a jack to lift the settling kamoi. There's a ranma and a wall above, but I don't think they're that heavy. Even though the beam above has settled, the pine has hardened over the past 50 years, so I doubt it'll settle any further. This wood is called a tsuritsuka. It literally means hanging post. It suspends the kamoi from the beam above. I jack it up slightly and trim the top of the tsuritsuka so that it matches the new height of the kamoi. Since there wasn't much weight from the wall, it lifts more easily than I expected. The left side of the kamoi still settles a bit, but since the right side, which is 1.8 meters wide, is the doorway, I raise that side to its proper height so that it's nice and level. To install the column, I notch out the center between the grooves. That part becomes a mortise to join with the column's tenon. The bottom is a simple butt joint. I just cut it straight and set it up right on the floor. The kamoi in this tatami room is massive, way bigger than any I've seen before. It's about 14.3 to 14.7 centimeters wide. It's almost impossible to find a 14.3 centimeter square column to match the size. Because of the tatami layout, I attached the column to align with the tatami room side, so it's not perfectly centered in the kamoi. Now I install the column. When bringing it in at an angle, you've got to lift the kamoi as much as possible. If it's only lifted to the final height, it will just damage both the kamoi and the column's end. Once it's in place, I lower the jack slightly and let everything settle to the right height. I secure strong structural hardware at the spot where I trimmed the churitsuka. It's even stronger than taishinite for columns because it uses a lot more screws. Next, I install a 1.8 meter shiki at the entrance. Instead of lining it up with the sill and column, I align it along the tatami side. There'll be a thin threshold track installed here for the sliding doors, making it easier to line everything up with the flooring. When securing the shiki, I have to account for how the floor under the tatami has settled. If it's not level, the sliding doors won't move smoothly. There's a slight step down from the tatami, but I can fine-tune the level with a shim to keep things functional. Can't expect everything to be perfectly level after all. Since the track goes on top of the shiki, I can screw straight down from above. It makes the job easier. Now the column and shiki on the tatami room side are done. I also install a similar column on the kitchen side. Neither the kamoi nor the floor had settled over there, so it went much more smoothly. Next, I mark the full layout of the floorboards. The room is 3.6 meters across, so one board can span the entire width. But since it goes all the way to the entrance, I leave it a bit longer. Wood expands and shrinks, so I'm always a bit cautious. I don't start laying boards right at the edge. Instead, I begin 90 centimeters in from the end. If I started at the edge, I'd have to deal with a mud wall that breaks the run into 1.8 meter sections. No matter how carefully I line up the 1.8 meter boards, I'd get height differences next to the 3.6 meter board. So I start with the 3.6 meter boards where I can lay them straight through. Next, I installed the 90 centimeter floorboards at the edge, joining and screwing them from the groove side to the tongue side, which is the opposite of the usual method. This method may cause squeaking when stepped on firmly, but since this area is a closet, it's no big deal. These are 30 millimeter thick joistless floorboards, thick enough that they don't need joists, so I'm not adding any insulation underneath. At 30 millimeters thick, cedar is warm enough on its own. If they were hinoki joistless floorboards, that'd be a different story, but cedar holds warmth well. People have different tastes. Many prefer hinoki's color, but cedar has its own charm and lots of good qualities. There'll be an access panel to the crawl space under the table. I'm skipping the aluminum frame so that chair legs don't catch on it. Just trimming the floorboards and leaving it open. It's been a while since I cut into the floor with a hole saw. These days, the plumber usually does it later, so this was a rare case. Now, I've installed 2 columns and shiki and laid the flooring. Adding that center column across the 3.6 meter span also made the house sturdier. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.